Hello and welcome back to Popcorn Chat. I hope you guys are doing well. In this week's video, we're going to be talking about some of my favourite football films since it's the Euros over here in Europe, and I thought we could all get in the mood by watching some great football films. So one of my favourite football films, especially when I was younger, was She's the Man. Playing football when I was younger, I'd watch this again and again with my friends, team members, and it felt really inspiring to see a female football player in some sorts on the screen and it being represented in a funny and humorous, sort of engaging kind of way. If you've seen the film, I'm sure that you're aware that this is an adaptation of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. It's very sort of loosely based on that, and you know, just before this sort of came out in the 90s, we had 10 Things I Hate About You, which was about Taming the Shrew. You got Clueless, which was about Emma. So you have this sort of whole era of like adaptations of classic novels and plays, and She's the Man fits perfectly into that, whilst also being a great football film. I think many people can access this film because it's not necessarily about football. Football is a part of it, and that's why Viola wants to go to college and play football because she can't play it at her current university. But at the heart of it, it's about comedy, it's about relationships, it's about siblings, it's about family, it's about all these themes that everyone can relate to, but also has that sort of football element. So if you like comedies, you like physical comedies, you like rom-coms, you like football, you've got it all with She's the Man. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check that one out. So one of my other favourite football films has to be Bend It Like Beckham. Again, this came to me at a time when I was massively into football, and She's the Man was there, and you had Bend It Like Beckham. So there's two films that representing female football players in particular, but this one's very much more British in its sort of roots and its story. So I love this film, especially because it shows those cultural elements. It touches upon sexuality, religion, expectations of women, and even men as well. It touches on everything within this film, and it's a British classic. Most people in Britain love this film, regardless of it being a football film or not. It's one of those uplifting films that you could watch whenever, really. So my next recommendation, I'm going to sort of jump to the other end of the scale in terms of the themes, and that is going to be Green Street. I only saw that recently last year, and it's not a film that I say I would love, but I liked it the way that it looked at firms, football fans. There is a character sort of arc there with Charlie Hunnam's character and his brother, and the sort of heritage of being part of a firm. One of the most annoying things about this film, though, was Charlie Hunnam's accent. Being a Geordie, and then he was trying to put on a sort of West Ham, East London kind of accent, it just didn't really work. It kept pulling me out of the film, like, just constantly. But other than that, I do think he was great for the role. It was just the accent was very, very distracting. And another note was that this film was directed by a woman. It was directed by Lexi Alexander, and I thought that she brought something a bit more human to it, whereas possibly if this was directed by a man, it might have just gone down the violent sort of route. But I think that sort of relationship with his brother, and sort of the final scene on the sort of coastline, I thought that was really interesting. So possibly I think Lexi Alexander's influence might have really sort of saved this film. The next film I'm going to recommend for you is Goal. Now, this is the first one. They did make 3 films, but just the first one. So this is quite big actually over here in England, and I think it was because it was set in Newcastle. For some reason, Newcastle were quite a big club here. They're not necessarily now, but we follow the character Santiago, who is a Mexican football player, and he sort of gets scouted and ultimately comes to England to fulfil his dream of playing in the Premier League. Even though this film feels a bit dated looking back at it now, I think at the core of it, the story of someone who's come from nothing and is able to make something of their career and also find romance and, you know, be true to their family and their roots, I think is a tale as old as time. So I think that's why this film works. It's just a shame that it was set in this sort of 2004 era and the fashion and everything like that and the clubs. But other than that, I think the story and the characters at the root of this film are pretty good. So the final film that I'm going to recommend to you is Mike Bassett. Now, I only watched this for the first time earlier this year, and I was absolutely surprised by this. It's a mockumentary that looks at the appointment of the England manager from a sort of very low level club, because they're running out of England managers to ask, and they end up asking Mike Bassett. Mike Bassett is played by Ricky Tomlinson, who many people know from the royal family, and the comedic timing that he brings to this film is excellent. It's a little bit silly, but you have to go with it. And it's always good, I think, if you have a little bit of context of sort of England managers or just sort of general sort of English football. It really adds to this film. So those are my top 5 football recommendation films. Of course, there's loads of football films out there, but these are just some of my favourites, and hopefully I've covered various sort of tone, pacing, and different sort of stories within those 5 recommendations. So if you have any more football films you'd like to let me know, maybe I can check them out, do let me know in the comments and I'll make sure to check those out. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you very soon for another popcorn chat. Come on, England!